we want to talk about strength training, right? And why getting stronger is important, not only throughout your lifetime, but especially as we get older. Okay, I turned 30 on Monday, which is not that old, and I'm entirely aware of that. But there are certain things that as a birthday approaches, you think about, okay, another year older, another year wiser. Am I another year stronger? Right? Am I another year stronger? And some people answer that yes, and some people answer no. And I think it's really important to be able to answer yeah, yeah, like I'm another year stronger, whether that's physically or mentally or spiritually or whatever it is. But we're going to talk about physical strength today and why it's important to improve as we get older. So we'll go right into the content. I want to deliver valuable content to you guys and stop beating around the bush. Um, the first question I want to answer is why, right? Why is strength training important as we age, right? And there's some obvious answers, but the first thing that comes to mind is a slide that when I was in physical therapy school, they brought up this slide. It said, things that happen as you age. And everybody in my class looked at it and we were like, uh-oh. Like, if that's all going to go down as we get older, like, how are we supposed to feel good as we get older? Right? We're talking disc degeneration. We're talking dehydration of your skin cells. We're talking about decreased bone density. We're talking about decreased muscle mass. We're talking about increased recovery time. This slide had all these things on it that were just like, oh God, like, there's a reason people tell us, like, stay young. I understand that. And that jumped out to me. And I was like, well, all right, we can't not get older. What are we supposed to do? So there are things we can do, not to stop aging, and that's not the idea, right? It's a privilege denied to many to get older, right? So you still want to get older, but how do we still feel good as we get wiser, right? Um, it's important to strength train, right? So I mentioned that slide because the next slide had all of the benefits of exercise on it, right? Okay, if you're gonna decrease your bone density, guess what increases your bone density? Lifting weights, right? Body weight exercise is lifting weights. If we're gonna decrease hydration, right, in discs and that kind of stuff, what strengthens the tissues in those discs, right? Exercise gets that stuff stronger. Um, just about everything that could go wrong, quote unquote, as we age, you can modify, mediate, or maybe even improve with exercise, specifically strength training, right? And there's a lot of really good studies done on strength training versus cardiovascular training and that kind of stuff. And as far as bone density, as far as the improvements we're going to talk about, strength training with either body weight or with dumbbells and that kind of stuff does wonders, wonders, as far as actual health, your actual physiology, and that's not to mention anything psychologically, right? That being healthy and being strong will get you. So that was my two slides on aging in physical therapy school that just totally stuck out to me as like, okay, well, all these things happen when we get older. We can slow the rate of those and we can modify how our body responds with exercise and with strength training. So that's one reason why, right, is to improve your experience of getting old. The second thing is fall risk. And I know a lot of people in here that's something that you're concerned about, right, of this fear of falling, right? What happens if I fall? A couple things, right? If I fall and I can't get up, who's gonna find me on the ground somewhere? If I fall and I hurt something, what's gonna happen, as far as recovery of that, right? If you broke something, if there's a surgery involved, if there's like a rehab facility involved, all that stuff that's not so fun. We want to decrease our risk of sustaining a fall. Strength training, right, has, depending on what you do, depending on the exercises that you do and who's prescribing them for you, can significantly reduce your risk of falls, right? By having stronger hip muscles, by having a stronger core and base of support, by having stronger ankle muscles, by having better reaction times is the right thing to say there, right? Better control over how your foot and ankle move, over how your knee moves, over how your hip moves, right? If you had to navigate getting over an object in your house, right, you need the strength and the coordination to either step over that object or get around that object. If it's little, if it's big, if it's expected or if it's unexpected, by strength training, you're going to improve your likelihood of not falling, right? And there's a lot of nasty side effects that come with falls, the least of which is loss of independence, and that's a huge issue that I help people with every day. But we want to make sure we reduce that risk as significantly as we can. And that brings me to another point of why strength train. One of the things that always stood out to me as soon as I finished my first neuroclinical, I was out in Arizona, every patient we saw who had had a stroke or just about everything, right? A stroke, a traumatic brain injury, a fall, a spine surgery, a neck fusion, anything like that, just about the very first thing we did with them is we started some kind of strength training. And one of the exercises I'm going to mention at the end, we did this with every patient. And it got me thinking, like, the better shape you are in, should heaven forbid something happen to you, the much better your outcomes are when you're trying to recover from that thing, right? So if you are stronger, if you had been training, your brain already knows the movements. Let's take this 2 steps at a time. Your brain already knows the movements that it needs to do to get you out of bed, to get your pants on, to get you up and down off the toilet, right? All those functional things you're going to have to do every day. Heaven forbid something should happen to you, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is physiologically, you are just stronger. You just are. You're starting, if you have to run a 100-mile race to get better, you're starting at mile 70 or 80 as opposed to starting at mile 0, right? So by being stronger, you put yourself in a position, should heaven forbid something happen to you, you are in much better shape than if you hadn't been doing anything, right? Or if you had been weaker, if you hadn't trained your body in such a way that got it stronger. Okay, so those are my 3 big ones, right? Of like, okay, these slides on aging, and like, okay, a lot of stuff happens as we get older, right? Our bodies start to change a lot. There are things that we can do to reduce our risk of those negatively affecting the way we feel. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is decrease your fall risk. And the third thing is that if you do suffer an injury, your likelihood of getting better, or your recovery rate of getting back to where you were before, or even better, is significantly higher if you have strength trained previously. Okay? That's the first thing I want to touch on. Thanks for listening so far. Are there any questions on that? If you guys have questions, put it in the comments below. Or if you have a comment or something you agree with or disagree with, let me know. If any of that has happened to you or to a family member, tell me about it, because I want to know, because I want to know that this stuff is working, right? And if you notice, like, yeah, I had a hip fracture, I had an ankle, or I had an ankle sprain or something like that, and I had been getting stronger before it, but unfortunately it happened. But I was in a much better place afterwards. So tell me about that, if you would. All right. Next, we're going to talk about the 3 components to strength. Okay. 3 components to muscle activity is the easier way to put that. Okay. But muscles work in 3 ways. I'm going to write this down so we can follow along together, right? 3 components of muscle. I'm going to call it activation. All right. So the first is very simply strength. Okay, there we go. So strength, very simply, all it is the capacity of your muscles to do work, right? To carry the load that you're asking them to carry. It usually happens in shorter amounts of time, and that'll become relevant in a second, right? Shorter amounts of time, meaning you got to lift something out of the fridge, right? You gotta put a suitcase, in the back of the car. You got to lift the groceries and carry the groceries in and out. Okay, those all require strength within your muscles, right? They require coordination and neuromuscular control and a lot of other things, right? But the main thing that needs over here is strength. Okay. The second component is something we call power. So put that in there. Power. Okay. And when a muscle produces power, think of that as a lot of force in a short space. Okay, the easiest analogy I can give you is a box jump. There we go. Is a box jump, right? So somebody jumps a high distance in a quick spurt. Okay, you can think of power like, let me think. In a daily activity, the example I gave before of getting a suitcase maybe onto the car, right? Where it's not like you got to hang out there for 20 minutes or do it, 5 or 6 times. You need one good burst to get the suitcase on the top of the car. Okay? Power has to do with even like that one, like standing up after like going to the bathroom, right? You need strength and you need power in order to do that, because it's not like you're going to take 5 minutes to stand up. You need to be able to do it in a second or less, right? Most people use power in different ways throughout the day. It's not the most commonly, not the most common thing we do every day, right? We usually use strength. Sometimes we use power. The other thing we use a lot of, and the last little component here, is something called endurance. Okay? So we got strength, power, and endurance. Here we go. So endurance, think about muscles that are turned on a lot throughout the day, right? Think about your posture muscles and the muscles that are in our backs that help to keep us upright. Think about your glutes, right? And the muscles that we use to walk around. If we're walking around a lot throughout the day, right? My former teachers in here, I know you didn't just sit in a classroom and teach a kid from a sitting position. You were up and you were walking around, right? And you needed to do that all day. You needed to do that for an hour at a time with maybe a little break, and then another hour at a time. You needed to go through that throughout the day. I like to compare that to like a marathoner, right? You need your muscles turned on for a long amount of time, right? They don't necessarily have to be explosive, right? They don't have to necessarily be that one jolt of power, right? They don't necessarily have to just be strong to be able to get you through a minute or two of work. They need to have significant endurance, okay? So those are the 3 components to strength, right? To muscle activity. And that's going to be important because you guys are going to be able to do this on your own when we talk about these 3 exercises that I give just about everybody. Just about. And everybody's always different. When I give a plan of care, it's very, very customized. But if you pulled somebody off the street and said, all right, Cal, here's a 60-year-old with no other significant medical history, where should they start exercising? What are some things that they should start doing today to get all those benefits we talked about in the beginning, right? The benefits of reducing the risk of falls, the benefits of keeping their body strong, heaven forbid something should happen to them, and the benefits of reducing or rather enjoying the impacts of aging as opposed to not enjoying those things, right? So my three go-to exercises, and this is where I would write these down. The first, really simple, is walking. I think walking is the best exercise we have as a species. Right? That's a bold statement, and I might be wrong, but the barrier to walking is really low. Right? You got a pair of shoes, go for a walk. Very simple. And it doesn't have to be a power walk, and you don't have to carry weights, and you don't have to make it a workout. Go take your dog for a walk. Right? Go with your kid for a walk. Just go. Try to do it about 30 minutes. If you got to split it up, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at noon, 12 minutes, 10 minutes at night, split it up, right? But start walking, right? It's going to start putting some impact through your legs. You need good range of motion in your feet, ankles, and knees. Cardiovascularly, right? You're going to start to bring blood flow to places that needs it. Walking. Top of the list, boom. Start, if you're not doing any kind of walking, start 10 minutes a day. Okay, if you have to break that up, break it up. But that's my absolute first go-to exercise for anybody. The second one is a bridge, and I'm going to show you that in a second. I'm going to show you it right now. I'm going to tilt the screen down, I think. Here we go. All right, so a bridge. This is like physical therapy 101. Okay, laying on your back. You can use in bed. You can either hold on to the floor. I like to do mine with my hands up here. Okay? Belly tight, hips up. That's all we do. Right here. And we just go. Right? Start with 5 or 10. Work your way up to 30 at a time. Okay? I had a bunch of students yesterday, and they watched the treatment session I did with the patient, and I made the patient some bridges. And we got to talking about it. I told them the story, and I'll abbreviate it for you guys. But think about it. Heaven forbid, you are in a hospital bed. Somebody needs to help you put pants on, right? If you're here to get those pants on, you gotta lift. There is no shoving the pants up anywhere without you at least getting an inch or two up off the ground, right? So bridges are really simple. If we go up and down like this, they're so easy to make harder. You cross one leg over, you go up on one foot, right? You want to make it harder than that, you bring the other foot out, you point your toes up they go. Right? There's so many easy ways to make bridges more difficult. But I'll never forget in the first clinical in a neuro hospital that I had to do. I mentioned it before. We had stroke patients who had strokes. We had patients with traumatic brain injuries. We had patients with post-spinal fusions. We had patients with a lot of things. Just about every patient, we had to start with a bridge. And it goes back to what I said before of being in good shape, right? If your brain already has a pattern, hey, we've done this before. Oh, right, this is a bridge. They want me to lift my hips up. Got it. So they can put my pants on. Got it. You help to establish a pattern. It's almost like a groove in a record, right? Once your brain needle finds that groove, it'll just do it. So that's one reason the bridges are great. The other reason is that it develops strength within your glute muscles, right? Your glute muscles, you got to have them turned on when you're walking. You got to have them turned on when you're standing up from sitting down on a couch or on the toilet. They're really important in getting up off the ground. So the glute muscles are the first muscle group that if I had to isolate one and say, okay, you're only going to get 2 exercises with this person, what are you going to have them do? That is my my absolute go-to is a bridge. And they're super simple, right? And if you can't do one, start with half of one. Right? Start with half of one, 2 or 3 times a day, and then build your way up. Right? The last exercise that I would give people, okay, is a push-up. This should come as no surprise to a lot of you guys who have done the balance and strength and flexibility workouts. We do push-ups every day. Right? The reason we do push-ups every day is because it is a full body exercise. Okay? Similar to the bridge, right? It's very functional, right? But a push-up is going to get your upper body involved, your core and torso have to be straight, your legs have to be totally straight. It's a really good exercise. Again, you can progress it and regress it in a bunch of different ways. I'm going to show you my push-up. Can't guarantee that it's going to be pretty. But I like to do them from my knees because I know my form is good. So I go down here and I go straight down, straight up. And from this angle, my elbows pinch my sides. And I go down, you go down to here, and you push up through there. Now the beauty of knowing what you guys now know, and if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. You can tell this doesn't make any sense. If it does make sense, type in the comments sense. Sense like S-E-N-S-E, not C-E-N-T-S. Right? But if it's making sense to you, if this is all like sounding good and reasonable, just type that in so I know you guys understand it. And the beauty of knowing what you know now, those 3 exercises, right? Bridges, push-ups, walking. The 3 components, strength, endurance, and power, combine those, you can make your own program. Okay? So power is explosive movement. So you can then do push-ups where you go fast, right? Or you can do bridges where you go fast. Strength, typically we go like 3 sets of 10, right? Or 3 sets of 12 for strength. And the reason behind that is we want a good balance. It's a good in between of power and endurance. Okay? Or you can go endurance. And endurance, I go 15 to 30 reps with somebody, right? Of like, just keep doing it, right? Go at about a second, up and down takes a second. But the more you do, the better you're going to build that endurance up. Hello, Ken. Get back to bridges. Bingo. You bet. Thanks for being here. I know you're on vacation. Put your phone away. Go on a walk. No, I'm kidding. I'm glad you're here. So those are my 3, and I would encourage you guys start with that. Start building strength. Again, like 3 sets of 10 of each of those, walking for 30 minutes a day. And then as you get better at them, give yourself anywhere between like 10 days and 2 weeks. As you start to get better at them, add another component. Add power. Right? Start exploding through one of those. Or add endurance, right? And start doing more reps within one set, right? Those are my 3 go-tos. There are hundreds out there, hundreds of exercises, and most of them are pretty good. But in terms of aiming for efficiency, those are my go-tos, right? Walking is good in a lot of different ways, the least of which is psychologically. Get outside and walk, especially in a time like this, right? Get out early, or when there's nobody else around, take a walk. There's a reason that it's like a phrase to help people calm down. Go take a walk, take a little break, get out of here, right? Calm down. That's a huge reason to go do it. So walking, push-ups, bridges, strength, power, endurance. If that is helpful, tons of walking. Good, Karen. Good. I'm sure it looks beautiful. I keep seeing Bud's pictures. And it's good in a lot of ways, especially in a place like New Hampshire. Get out. So if you guys have any questions, I'll hang around a couple extra minutes here. But those are my go-tos. And if you have questions about what I talked about, feel free to ask them in the comments. If you want me to cover something specific next week, because I think this might be a Friday thing, I'd be like, all right, let's answer your questions and let's just hang out. Then put those in the comments if there's something you want to cover. If you know anyone who could benefit from what we talked about, you can either share this with them, invite them to the next one, which will be next Friday at 2:15, or have them reach out to me. I am happy to help in any way I can. You guys are awesome. And that's it. That's all I got for you. So I'll hang out. It's weird because I just am looking at a screen and I can't see you guys. But you are. Like I said, I'll hang out in a minute or two and answer any questions. And, just hang. Which is where your favorite yoga move? That's awesome. Yeah, they do them in yoga a lot, and yoga is awesome. And I did the bar method for a little bit, and at the bar method they finished every class with just a bunch of bridges, and I could feel myself getting stronger, and I think it made a big difference for me personally. Good question, Karen, sorry. What's the impact of doing push-ups with elbows out instead of pinching your sides? I see less compensations with people when they go elbows in. When people go elbows out, they tend to dip, and I can show you. There's 2 reasons I say elbows in. The first is less compensation, right? It makes it harder. So if you can do a bunch of elbows in push-ups, like here, it's easy to then go out this way, right? The reverse is not true, right? If you can do a bunch of out here push-ups, it's harder to then go in and recruit there. So that's the first reason I do it, is because it's harder. right? I picked the harder exercise so that we can always regress to an easier one. But most people are able to modify that in some way. Um, Part of why it's harder is I don't want to say you reduce the number of muscle groups you use because you don't, you're still using the same number of muscle groups. You recruit different fibers of different muscles, right? So when your hands are in here, that you should feel more like in your triceps, right? In the backs of your arms. You'll feel it a little bit in your shoulders and chest, but by pinching down and staying close, you're going to target that muscle group. By going out, right, like this, and I'm assuming this is what you mean, right? By going out, that's more chest, right? That's going to hit more of like your pec muscles up in the front. And again, it's not a bad thing, but that's usually not the muscle group that needs work on people. Typically, posterior chain muscles, right? Like the triceps in the back, the muscles in the back, your posture muscles, those are the ones that benefit the most with the elbows in. When you go elbows out, you start hitting your chest and like front of your arms. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you'd ask me, well, should I do no push-ups or should I do elbows out push-ups? I'd say do elbows out push-ups. Right? Better than nothing. You said to me, should I do elbows out or elbows in? I'd say elbows in for those reasons, right? It's harder and it targets muscles that typically need it more than elbows in. Does that make sense? Let me know if that answers that. That's a good question. You guys are great. Thanks for being here.